Ladies and gentlemen, capital G back at it with Muzzio, a visionary architect. Before I get into this particular list, we're doing something very, very different here, and please let me know in the comments if you'd like me to keep doing these kind of videos. We're actually going to double up today. We're doing two deck techs for Muzzio, Visionary Architect. One is a deck of my design, one is by Flaming Bear Inc., one of our more prolific members on the Dungeons and Cardboard Discord group. Great guy. I've had a chance to talk to him, and we've managed to brew some decks together. So, great guy. And he's the one who actually brought the card to my attention, because this was originally printed in OG Conspiracy, and I have never run into this card in the wild. So, I didn't know about this guy until maybe less than 24 hours ago, actually. So I threw together a list, he threw together a list, and we're going to be covering both lists. I just note that I did not see his list before I recorded the video, and he has not seen mine. Actually, both our lists, we've exchanged the lists now, so he has access to my list now, but we built our deck before seeing each other's lists. So it's a great way to see some contrasting deck building styles. And like I said, if this is something that you think is really cool, like I said, leave some comments. Let me know if you want me to do this with, it can be with FBI or any of the other members of the Discord group. And again, link for the Discord group is in the description. And yeah, I think we're going to have some fun. We are going to look at FBI's list first, and then we're going to look at mine. That's just kind of how I ended up setting it up in the program. There was no rhyme or reason per se. But yeah, let's look at what Muzzio does first. Then we'll dive into FBI's list, and then we'll go into mine. So Muzzio, Visionary Architect. Blue, 1/3 Human Artificer. Originally from Conspiracy. For a blue and 3 generic, we can tap it and look at the top X cards of our library, where X is the highest converted mana cost amongst artifacts we control. We may reveal an artifact card from among them and put it onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. That is a really cool ability. So, let's see what FBI managed to put together. He's a little trickier with Muzzio, because the trick is we want to ramp him out, and then we also want to make sure we have enough mana to activate his ability, and we want to have artifacts in play to, you know, maximize the value of X. So, let's see what FBI's come up with. Starting off with the Arcane Signet to ramp up. Blinkmoth Urn, in addition to being a 5 CMC artifact, this can also generate extra mana for us just by, us owning artifacts. It has the downside of potentially giving our opponents mana to work with as well if they are running artifacts. But it's offset by the fact that we're running more. Chromatic Orrery, 7 mana for this amazing mana rock from M21. We may spend mana as though we're a mana of any color. So even though we're a mono blue deck, and this thing only taps for 5 colorless, we can spend it as if it were blue mana. Pretty sweet. We can also pay 5, tap this, and draw a card for each color among permanents we control. Generally, that's only going to be 1, but you never know. Darksteel Forge to give all our artifacts indestructible. And that mana value of 9 is significant too. That's a lot of cards we can look at with Muzzio. 9. Isochron Scepter. So, spoiler alert. One point where FBI and I did cross over. We agreed on running the Isochron Scepter Dramatic Reversal combo. Both our decks feature that. So that is the key reason why Isochron Scepter is here. There are other instants and sorceries, or mainly instants, of course, that we can imprint onto this, but the goal is to get dramatic reversal on it. Mirror Works. This 5 mana artifact lets you copy artifacts that come onto the battlefield under your control by paying 2 mana. A great price. Mox Opal. He's running actually a very low land count, but he's running some extra cheap mana rocks such as Mox Opal to make up for it. So in the case of Mox Opal, it taps our mana of any color as long as we control 3 or more artifacts. Mycosine Flatus turns everything in the deck into an artifact and makes everything colorless. That's okay. If everything's an artifact, then Muzzio is going to give us a hint every time. Speaking of giving us a hit every time, the Planar Bridge. 6 mana value, so again, we get to look at a lot of cards from Muzzio. And for 8 and tapping, we can go get any card from our library and put it onto the battlefield. Prismatic Lens. 2 mana Mana Rock. That can tap for colorless or tap for mana of any color. Well, we have to filter it. Good choice there. Rings of Bright Earth. Whenever we activate an ability, if it's not a mana producing ability, we can pay an additional 2 to copy that ability. Pretty cool. Scroll Rack. This is actually excellent. 2 mana for this very common staple in our format. And as an activation, 1 tap, exile any number of cards from our hand face down and put that many cards from our library into our hand. Then the cards that we exile go on top. So basically you're swapping cards in your hand with cards from your library, so you can kind of engineer the top of your deck. Sculpting Steel, an artifact that copies artifacts. Yes, please. Sensei's Divining Top, again for the top deck manipulation. Skyclave Relic. Indestructible 3 mana Mana Rock that we can kick to have, 3 of them instead of just 1. A Soul Ring, of course. Spine of Ishsa, great removal piece. For 7 mana, this comes into play. Destroy target permanent. It's an ETB trigger, not a cast trigger, so we don't have to cast the card to get the value. Also, whenever this is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, it comes back to our hand. So at that point, we can, recast it and just blow up more and more things. The Staff of Domination, great combo piece. 1 mana to untap the staff. 2 tap to gain life. 3 tap to untap a creature. 4 tap to tap down a creature. And 5 tap to draw a card. So once we can generate infinite mana, typically using the Dramatic Reversal combo, we can draw our whole deck and get our win con from there. Thought Vessel, to ensure we have no maximum hand size, also taps for a colorless. Thran Dynamo, 4 mana for this rock that taps for 3 colorless. It's actually a pretty good fit here, and I run it on my deck as well, as you'll see shortly. The reason for that is because of that 4 mana value, and the fact that it taps for 3 colorless. Well, it pays 75% of our commander's activation cost. It also lets us play expensive artifacts from our hand more easily if we have to do that. So Thran Dynamo is a great fit here. The Unwinding Clock. Untap all artifacts we control during each of the player's untap step. So, just lets us keep mana open every turn. I think that's a pretty good idea. Going into creatures. Aeronaut Tinkerer. A 2/3 that flies as long as we control an artifact, just to, block for us. Maybe swinging and chipping for some damage. The Colossus of Akros, in fact. 8 mana for this 10/10 defender, so blocks forever. It's indestructible. And later in the game, if we have 10 mana to spare, we turn it into a 20/20 that can attack. That is amazing. Especially here, that 8 mana value is huge. Looking at 8 cards to going 8 cards deep of our commander, that is fantastic. It really is. Emery, Lurker of the Lock. Blue and 2, of course, for this 1/2 from Throne of Eldraine. A Merfolk Wizard that costs 1 less to cast for each artifact we control. And when she enters the battlefield, we get to put the top 4 cards of our library into our graveyard. We can also tap her and choose an artifact card in our graveyard that we'll be able to cast until the end of the turn. Ethereum Sculptor. 2 mana for this 1/2. Artifact spells cost 1 less. Jorah's Familiar. Historic spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, which is actually pretty significant. Reduces the cost of both our commander and for any artifacts that we choose to cast. The Lodestone Golem can mess up our opponent's little stack CPs here. 4 mana for this 5/3 Golem. Non-artifact spells cost 1 more to cast. Very disruptive. An all-star in the deck, and both our decks feature this. Master Transmuter. A blue and 3 for this 1/2 human artificer, who's also an artifact. Blue tap, return an artifact we control to our hand to put an artifact card from our hand onto the battlefield. And yes, you can, in concept, pay a blue, tap it, return Spine of Ishsaw back to your hand, and put that spine back into play. It can be the same card. There's nothing that restricts you otherwise. Memnarch. 7 mana for this 4/5 wizard. Artifact creature, of course, so can come into play on the cheap. And the activations are very strong. Blue 1 to have a permanent become an artifact. And blue and 3 to gain control of any artifact on the battlefield. That includes the ones you may have transformed. Memnarch's abilities are permanent, by the way. They do not expire even when Memnarch leaves the battlefield. Metalwork Colossus. 11 mana, 10/10. Cost X less to cast, where X is the total converted mana cost of non-creature artifacts we control. So depending on what mana rocks you may have gotten out early in the game, you might get a significant discount on him. Also, when it's in the graveyard, you can sacrifice 2 artifacts to bring this back to your hand. The Mycosynth Golem. Another 11 mana artifact creature. It's a 4/5 with affinity for artifacts. So affinity, of course, meaning that it costs less to cast for each artifact you control on the battlefield. And then artifact creature spells you play have affinity for artifacts. And a fun fact about it, I believe it's stacked, so a creature can in concept have affinity for artifacts twice. So that's just a fun little synergy to keep in mind. Also, again, lets you play all your artifacts for cheap. It's got a mana value of 11, so that is a lot of digging with Muzzio. Mirror Battlesphere. Of course, bring this in on the cheap. Get a Mirror Battlesphere and 4 colorless mirror tokens. And when this attacks, it punches face. So, long-time staple of our format. Padim, Console of Innovation. 4 mana for this Vidalcan Artificer. He's not an artifact, but he has quite the synergies. Artifacts you control have hexproof, and if you control the artifact with the highest converted mana cost, you get to draw a card. Phyrexian Metamorph. This comes out for 3 colorless and 2 life, or you can pay a blue and 3, depending on what you need. Or you can get it for free with Muzzio. But no matter how it comes into play as a copy of any artifact or creature on the battlefield. Shimmer Mirror to give all of your things flash. Excellent add, actually. I did not consider this one for my list. Sad Robot, of course, to ramp up. Thought Monitor. A 7 mana for a 2/2 flyer doesn't sound so great until you realize that it has affinity for artifacts. So this will come down for 3/2, 3/4 mana, depending on what stage of the game. And it draws you 2 cards when it enters the battlefield. He is running the Treasure Mage, which lets you go get an artifact costing 6 or more and put in your hand. Also running the Tribute Mage to go get an artifact card with mana value 2. So this is great for grabbing the Isochron Scepter or a Mana Rock. Triplicate Titan. It's got flying, it's got vigilance, and it's got trample. And if this ever dies, it splits into 3. So you literally get a 3/3 golem with vigilance, 1 with trample, and 1 that flies. All 3 threes. Pretty sweet. And the Vidalcan Archmage. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, draw a card. Enchantments include March of the Machines to turn all our non-creature artifacts into creatures. And we swing out that way. Mechanized Production for the alternate win condition. Blue, and 2 for this aura that you can enchant on any artifact you control. At the beginning of your upkeep, you get a token that's a copy of the enchanted artifact. Then once you control 8 or more artifacts of the same name, you win the game. Actually, the perfect target on this one is the Mirror Battlesphere because it comes in and makes tokens. So, the Mirror Battlesphere, and you just have 8 mirrors. That'll work. Mirror Maid comes into play as a copy of any artifact or enchantment on the battlefield. And of course, for the card draw, Rhystic Study. Would you like to pay 1 for that? You probably should. Instance, running a bunch of interaction in this deck. Aetherize, a blue and 3 to return all attacking creatures to their owner's hand. Great defensive piece. Arcane Denial, pretty strong counter spell, counters any type of spell. You get to draw a card on the next turn's upkeep. Your opponent gets to draw 2 cards. So, technically card disadvantage, but by that same token, very effective. Brainstorm, draw 3, put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library. Not always a good EDH card, but if we want to be putting expensive artifacts back on top of our library for Muzzio to cheat out, perfect. Running the Rift, of course. The nice thing about Muzzio is that he doesn't have to be activated at sorcery speed, so it's actually really easy to hold up the mana. And if you don't need to Rift, just activate Muzzio, draw, go. Deliberate. Scry 2, draw a card for 2 mana at instant speed. There is the dramatic reversal that we're talking about. So untap all non-land permanents you control. So if you are not familiar with dramatic reversal in Isochron Scepter, the idea is that you put your Isochron Scepter onto the battlefield, imprint dramatic reversal on it, and as long as you have mana rocks that can tap for at least 3 mana in total, you tap your mana rocks, you use the Isochron Scepter to cast a copy of dramatic reversal. Everything untaps, including your mana rocks and the Isochron Scepter, and you can do this over and over and over again for infinite mana. If you have Muzzio on the battlefield, that's also infinite activations. So you can get whatever artifacts you want on the board, just like that. Mana Drain, best counter spell in the game, clearly. Double blue, counter any spell, any target spell, and at the beginning of your next main phase, that's how much colorless you get. The colorless of the equal to the mana value of the spell that you have countered. Mystical Tutor, 1 blue, go get an instant or sorcery. Shuffle your library, put it on top. It's specifically here as an extra copy of Dramatic Reversal. Running Negate as well. Just kind of, counter that Shatterstorm, counter that Vandal Blast. We don't want those kind of spells to resolve. Opt, quick scry, draw a card. Pognify, destroy creature, it becomes an ape. Rapid hybridization, similar deal. Destroy creature, it becomes a frog. And Reality Shift, exile a creature and its controller manifests the top card of their library. Manifesting Force meaning that they take the top card of their library. It's a face down 2/2 creature that they can turn over by paying its mana cost if it is a creature, if it's a face down creature. If it's, say, a sorcery that's face down, well, it's just stuck on the board as a 2/2 creature. Saw It Coming, great counter spell. The only 4 tarot card in the deck, if I remember correctly. So you pay a blue and 1 to foretell it, and then later on you can counter any spell for 2. Stoic Rebuttal, blue and 1. Costs 1 less to cast if you control 3 or more artifacts and counter target spell. So it's just counter spell. Running Thirst for Knowledge to draw 3 cards. Then you discard 2 cards unless you discard an artifact card. So 1 artifact card or 2 cards in total, your choice. Only 29 lands, which I find kind of low, but he's got some cheap rocks in there, and we want to have as many hits for Muzzio as possible, so it's perhaps worth the risk. Going with the Arcane Lighthouse, a cool activated ability that makes creatures our opponents control lose Hexproof and Shroud. Castle Vantress, it's a great scry source, and the opportunity cost of having this in the deck is nothing. As long as you already have an island, this comes into play untapped. Command Tower, couldn't tell you why, but Command Tower. Darksteel Citadel, so the artifact lands. So Muzzio can hit the artifact lands when we're digging in the early going, so that is pretty good to have Darksteel Citadel in here. 20 islands. Nikto, Shrine to Nyx, he's running quite a few colored permanents, so take advantage of that. Power Depot, another artifact land from Modern Horizons 2, has modular 1. So if this ever goes to the graveyard for whatever reason, you can put that +1/+1 counter onto an artifact creature. Seat of the Synod. Just an artifact land that taps for blue. No other drawback other than being an artifact. I generally don't run cards like Seat of the Synod and the original artifact lands. Mainly because Vandal Blast exists, Shatterstorm exists, and these things can just incidentally get swept up. But in Muzzio, it makes perfect sense to have it, so I approve. Shrine of the Forsaken Gods, taps for a colorless, or can tap for 2 colorless if we're using it to cast a colorless spell. We only get that second possible choice if we have 7 or more lands, itself included, but there is no cost to having it in the deck. Treasure Vault, yet another artifact land, taps for colorless, or we can dump double X into it to create X treasure tokens. 2 planeswalkers, including Tezzeret the Seeker. Great plus ability, untap 2 target artifacts. Great minus ability, we can go get an artifact card, mana value X or less, and put it onto the battlefield. And then -5, artifacts you control become 5/5s. So all 3 abilities actually useful. The -5 is super easy to achieve, so no reason not to run this. Tezzeret Artifice Master, also a 5 mana planeswalker, 5 loyalty. +1, you get a Thopter token with flying. A 0 ability of drawing a card, although if you control 3 or more artifacts, which this deck wants to do, you draw 2 cards instead. Fantastic card. The -9, don't count on it, but if you somehow get there, then at the beginning of your upkeep, search your library for a permanent, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. 7 sorceries, including all is dust, to have each player sacrifice all colored permanents they control. Our key pieces are colorless artifacts, so perfect. Our Given Restoration, return an artifact card from our graveyard to the battlefield. This deck has a little more artifact recursion compared to mine, as you'll see shortly. Mystic Speculation, 1 blue, scry 3, and it has a buyback of 2, so for 3 mana you can just constantly scry 3 and, churn garbage or whatever cards that you no longer need off the top of your deck, and keep the good stuff on top. Ponder, similar deal, look at the top 3 cards of your library, then you can put them back, or you can shuffle, then you draw a card. Reconstruction, return an artifact card from your graveyard to your hand for 1 blue mana. And Seraphim Visions, draws you a card, scry 2. Temporal Mastery is here. 7 mana for this sorcery that lets you take an extra turn, or if you top deck it, you can pay the miracle cost, as long as it's the first card you drew this turn. And on that is FBI's version of Muzzio. Now we're going to be diving into my list. So key differences between his list and mine just off the hop is I'm actually running a much higher concentration of artifacts. Even though I am an advocate for running lots of interaction in your decks, my deck is a lot less interactive than his is. So a couple key differences there off the hop, and we'll dive in and show you what we have in common and where we differed. Starting with artifacts, running the Aether Spellbomb as a possible removal piece. 1 mana to drop this down. We can pay a blue and sack it to return a creature to its owner's hand, or we can pay 1 and sack it to draw a card. There's our Arcane Signet. We're both running this card in our decks. I've got Basalt Monolith in here as a cheap way to generate some mana. Yes, we have to pay 3 mana to untap the Monolith, but it's a good quick ramp piece whenever we need it, and of course the mana value of 3 is very useful. Blasting Station, so I'm actually running all 4 stations in this deck from 5th on, and if you have all 4 of them in play, it's infinite. You do need a bauble of some sort, like a 1-cost artifact. That's why I have cards like Aether Spellbomb in here. But once you've got all 4 of those pieces and you have an artifact with a mana cost of 1 or less, well, you can just go to town and win the game. So Blasting Station itself is tap, sack a creature, deal 1 damage to target creature or player. And whenever a creature comes into play, you may untap the Blasting Station. Running Brainstone. 1 mana for this artifact, and we can pay 2 tap and sack to draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from our hand on top of our library. Darksteel Forge, both FBI and I run this card. The reasons are obvious. Gilded Lotus. I wanted to run some of the higher CMC mana rocks. I thought this would be perfect. That mana value of 5 means lots of digging, and being able to add 3 mana of any one color makes it a little easier to activate our commander. Grinding Station, sack an artifact. Target player puts the top 3 cards of their library into their graveyard. And whenever an artifact comes into play, we can untap the Grinding Station. Hedron Archive, 4 mana, taps for 2 colorless. And if we need cards instead of mana, we can always pay 2, tap, and sack this to draw 2 cards. The Illusionist Bracers. 2 mana equipment. Equip cost of 3. And whenever an ability of the equipped creature is activated, copy the ability. We may choose new targets. So we get this on our commander. Pay once. It's buy one, get one free at that point. So we just activate our commander once and get 2 resolutions. As I've mentioned before, I'm also running the Isochron Scepter Dramatic Reversal combo. So here is the Scepter. Lightning Greaves. Equipped creature has haste and shroud. We want to protect our commander. So yes, please. Liquid Metal Torque. This might seem a little odd. 2 mana for this rock. Taps for colorless, or you can tap to have a non-land permanent become an artifact in addition to its other types. Early in the game, like our commander costs 3. So if we don't have any other artifacts that cost more than 2, for example, we can always activate the Liquid Metal Torque to make our commander at 3 CMs an artifact, and then we can activate him and look at 3 cards instead of just 2. We also actually have some artifact removal in the deck. So if there's something we want to remove that's not necessarily an artifact or a creature, this will turn it into an artifact, so we can get it. Lithoform Engine. 4 mana for this legendary artifact. 2 tap, copy an activated or triggered ability we control. So we can use this to copy our commander. We don't have a lot of instants or sorceries in the deck, but we do have the opportunity to copy them with the Lithoform Engine as well. And 4 tap, copy a permanent spell we control. That could be a thing. Running the Mage Right Stone. This 2 mana artifact says 1 tap, untap a creature with an activated ability that costs tapping. So this can untap our commander because we have to otherwise tap it to activate its abilities. So this will help us untap it and get more activations. Mana Crypt. If you've got it, run it because we need all the help with the mana we can get. And Muzzio can also hit this with his ability if you need to get more mana. Mine Stone. 2 mana, taps for colorless, or 1 tap and sack to draw a card. Rings of Brighthearth. FBI and I are in agreement on this card. It's already cost 4 mana to activate our commander, but for an extra 2, we get 2 activations, not just 1. There's the Salvaging Station. This brings back a non-creature artifact card with mana cost 1 or less from our graveyard to play. And whenever a creature is put into the graveyard for play, we can untap the Salvaging Station. Sculpting Steel copies an artifact. Sky Diamond. Just nice to have a colored source of mana. Yes, it comes into play tapped. It's a little slow, but it's a colored source of mana for 2. Why not? Soul Ring, of course. The Spine of Ishsaw. Excellent removal. FBI are in agreement. Summoning Station. This 7 mana artifact puts 2/2 pincer creature tokens into play, so this can generate blockers for us on the ground. And whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from play, this can untap. Swiftfoot Boots. Again, to protect our commander. Also provide the hexproof and the haste. 1,000-Year Elixir. We may activate abilities of creatures we control as though they had haste. And we can also pay 1 and tap this to untap target creature, specifically our commander if we can. Thran Dynamo, again, FBI and I are in agreement on having this particular 4 mana rock in this deck. Trading Post. This one I'm surprised FBI did not consider. 4 mana for this artifact, and it's a great toolbox card. 1 tap, discard a card to gain 4 life. 1 tap, pay a life to create a goat to block. 1 tap, sack a creature, get an artifact card back from our graveyard to our hand. Or 1 tap, sack an artifact, draw a card. Like I said, I like the uses of it. The mana value is also useful for us because the more cards we can look at with our commander, the better. And Trading Post comes down fairly early. Worn Power Stone. This is actually a great choice, I think. 3 mana for this mana rock. Yes, it comes into play tapped, but it taps for 2 colorless. Going into our creatures, we have the Blightsteel Colossus. It's very rare that I turn to our sort of Phyrexian Poison Master here, but if we can cheat this onto the battlefield for free with Muzzio, Just that 12 mana value on its own, being able to go 12 cards deep on future activations is amazing. So's the Trample Infect Indestructible. The card is a shoo-in if you've got it. Colossus of Akros. Again, a card that FBI and I totally agree on. Very difficult to remove and the very high mana value. Darksteel Colossus. Not as good as the Blightsteel, but still, it's indestructible. Mana value of 11, and it turns sideways straight away without any other work. Sure thing. Duplicant. This is a great removal piece, actually. So, you know, we activate Muzzio and we hit Duplicant. Well, not only do we get to exile one of our opponent's creatures, but as long as this sticks around, we've got a pretty good mana value to activate Muzzio with. Ethereum Sculptor. It's an artifact creature. Again, full agreement. Inkwell Leviathan, 7/11. It's 7 colorless and 2 blue for this 7/11 Leviathan. It's an artifact creature. It has Island Walk, Trample, and Shroud. So, again, very difficult to remove. Very high mana value. Very useful for our commander. Master Transmuter. If you're running Muzzio, you're running Master Transmuter. It's an all-star. Same with Memnarch. If you're running Muzzio, run Memnarch. There's no reason not to. Metalwork Colossus, again another big beater that FBI and I agree on. The Meteor Golem, 7 mana for this 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, destroy a non-land permanent an opponent controls. So yes, just another removal piece and another high value card that Muzzio really likes to cheat in. Mycosynth Golem, that's our Muzzio by the way, just kind of the way the program worked. Mycosynth Golem, 11 for this 4/5 with affinity for artifacts. We've already talked about him in FBI's list. Very powerful card, we want it. The Mirror Battlesphere, again, agreement with FBI, we both like this card in this deck. The Phyrexian Metamorph, again, artifact creature that copies an artifact or a creature on ATB. Sign us up. Phyrexian Triniform. I went with the Triniform. This is the 9 mana golem that when it dies you create 3 colorless golem creature tokens. No keywords, but it does have Encore. So if we ever somehow get to 12 mana, we can basically get 3 of these on the battlefield. Running the Sandstone Oracle, this is a great card draw piece because unlike FBI, I'm not running a lot of card draw. So by running the Sandstone Oracle, I'm going to run out of cards eventually, and this will build me right back up. Sojourner's Companion, it's a 4/4 with affinity for artifacts. But if I don't have a bunch of artifacts when I draw this, I can always cycle it away from one of my artifact lands. The Soul of New Phyrexia. 6/6 Trample. But what I like about it is when it's in play, I can pay 5 and permanents we control gain indestructible until end of turn. So it's a great way to protect the board. Especially since if I've got the Soul and I've got my commander, then I can just leave my mana open, and if I need to defend, I can defend with the Soul of New Phyrexia. If I'm free to activate my commander, I can do that too. Give me choices. Thought Monitor, again, full agreement. The affinity for artifacts to bring its cost down and bring it out much earlier than we should is very nice. Wormcoil Engine. By having things like Phyrexian Triniform and Wormcoil Engine, if somebody wants to wipe my board and they manage to resolve it, well, guess what? I still have tokens to swing with. 3 enchantments, including the Copy Artifact, because I've got a lot of cool artifacts. I definitely want to copy them. Mirror Maid, copy any artifact or enchantment. And Training Grounds is the big one. Being able to reduce the cost of not just our commander, but of Memnarch as well. So Training Grounds actually synergizes with a commander and a card in the 99 very nicely. Instance, running the Eighth Rise. Someone wants to swing out at us, well, we'll send all the creatures back to their hand. Brainstorm, of course, to manipulate the top of our deck. Counterspell to defend our face. There's Dramatic Reversal for the combo. Resculpt. Exile target artifact or creature. Its controller creates a 4/4 elemental. So yes, we're trading their best thing for a creature basically, but at 2 mana instant speed, excellent. Rewind. This is a great counter spell because again, we just hold the mana up to activate our commander, and if somebody tries to mess with us, well, not only can we counter their spell, but it untaps the land, so we still get to use them and still get to activate our commander. Swan Song, just because it's a cheap way to counter an instant, sorcery, or enchantment spell. Unwind, same reason as the Rewind. This one only hits non-creature spells, but it still untaps our lands and keeps us ready to go. I'm running 35 lands, including the Academy Ruins. So when I have an artifact card in my graveyard that I want on top of my library, this can make it happen. Castle Vantress, again, full agreement with FBI. The Scry is nice. Darksteel Citadel. I'm running the Evolving Wilds package. So this, Metamorphic Expanse, and Fabled Passage. And it's one of those things that if you have the regular fetch lands, run as many of them as you can because it actually thins the deck. And in the case of Muzzio, because he wants to dig and see as many artifacts as possible, it does make a difference to fetch out lands. So I'm just running the typical Evolving Wilds, Metamorphic Expanse, Fabled Passage. But if you've got your Prismatic Vista, and if you've got all the other regular fetch lands and you want to build this deck, I recommend it. Inventor's Fair. There's the Fabled Passage I was talking about, by the way. Inventor's Fair comes into play untapped, taps for colorless. And when we have a bunch of artifacts in play, we can always pay 4, tap, and sack this to go get an artifact. 21 basic islands. And I'm old school at Water's Edge. It's a great way to untap our commander. Running the Myriad Landscape, another way to fetch out some islands from the deck. Power Depot, of course. Seat of the Synod. Again, it's not something I typically run, except here. It makes perfect sense. Shrine of the Forsaken Gods. There's unlike Temple of the False God, this actually gives us mana right away, no matter what. So it's a great fit here. And don't ask me to pronounce this card, but it's good. It comes into play tapped. You can tap it for 1 blue, or you can sack it for 2 blue if you're in a spot. I think it's quite a good card. It was originally from Fallen Empires. There's the Metamorphic Expanse I was talking about earlier to go get basics. Treasure Vault. And I'm only running 1 Tezzeret rather than 2. In this case, it's Tezzeret the Seeker. Untaps artifacts, tutors out an artifact, and the -5 is also useful. Sorceries. I do have 4 sorceries left to talk about, including Fabricate to go get any artifact that we want. Merchant Scroll specifically to tutor out our Dramatic Reversal. So when we're ready to go off with that combo, Merchant Scroll can go get that piece. Raven Form, another spell that can exile an artifact or a creature, and it has Foretell. And I'm also running Seagate Restoration as a great way to draw cards, or we can always play it as Seagate Reborn and play it as a land. So even though I'm only running 35 lands, Seagate Restoration is essentially land number 36. So that will prove useful to us. And on that is our double tech for Muzzio Visionary Architect. Again, so FBI, special thanks. Greatly appreciate this little project. And if you want to see more videos like this where we compare 2 decks, one of my design and one from one of our members of Dungeons and Cardboard, please comment below and let me know. I thought it was fun to kind of compare and contrast. I do have 2 normal deck techs planned right now. I'm going to be doing an update to Edgar Markov, and I'm going to be doing Toxrill. Crimson Vow officially releases this Friday. Pre-release was last weekend, but the official release is like this week. So gonna just do those 2 deck techs and then gear up for Christmas. So it's gonna be fairly quiet on the channel for a little bit. but I should be hanging out quite consistently on the Discord group. So once again, look in the description for the Discord group link, and come hang out, come check us out, come make some friends, and play some Magic or whatever game you like to play. On that note, time to go. I will see you all next time. Bye for now.